Foldable phones are definitely a thing now in 2023, and that is largely thanks to Samsung's 4 years of relentless efforts. But also, since we only have Samsung in this game, this has resulted in only one form factor and only one extremely high price point. At first, this was not a problem, but a few years in, the lack of choice has become a real issue. I am among those foldable phone believers who thought foldable phones will replace traditional smartphones. But in the past few years, all my hopes have only come crashing down with every new release. And my biggest disappointment has always come from a compromised front screen, a form factor that was not quite right, and a phone too big and bulky to carry around comfortably. So the Pixel Fold is here to do one simple thing: finally give users the choice to use a folding phone without having to unfold it every time. Unfolding the Pixel Fold is an option, not a mandate. Foldable phones are a new category, and unlike traditional candy bar smartphones, there is no consensus yet on the ideal size and form factor. The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold series, the most popular folding phone, looks like a TV remote when folded, or in other words, it's tall and narrow. The front screen is also extremely narrow, so everything looks squeezed, and the keyboard is too small for comfort. In other words, you don't really want to use this phone without unfolding it first. The Pixel Fold is completely different. It comes with a 5.8 inches OLED screen, technically smaller than the 6.2 inches size on the Galaxy Fold 4, but in reality, because of the wider dimensions, you can comfortably use the Pixel Fold without unfolding. I don't know about you, but at least half the time I check my phone, it's for notifications or something else that literally takes a second, and in those cases, I don't need to be bothered to open the phone. The Pixel Fold works with me here, while I always feel like I am fighting the Galaxy Fold and its weird size in those cases. Design-wise, the Pixel Fold is actually noticeably thinner than the Galaxy Fold, and it's also less tall, and I found it fits easier in my pocket. I feel a discomfort carrying the taller Galaxy Fold 4 in my pocket, but less so with the Pixel Fold. However, it's still quite the heavy phone at 283 grams. The big concern about foldable phones is always the durability, and the risk of having a foldable phone break on you seems much higher than with a traditional phone. One curious design detail is that when unfolded, the phone defaults to a state where it's not exactly 180-degree flat, but just a bit less than that. You can push it ever so slightly to get it to a flat 180 state, though. This hasn't bothered me while using the phone, but it's kind of noticeable and a bit strange. Many have also complained about this huge bezel around the screen, but honestly, after just a day or two, I stopped noticing it, and actually appreciated having some space to hold the phone without any accidental touches. The bigger issues with the main screen are two. First one is just how delicate it is. You definitely don't want to use anything sharp with it, and even pressing firmer with a fingernail might leave a permanent mark. However, if you don't abuse it much, you should not have huge issues, but just keep in mind that issues on foldables often appear after a few months of use, and we cannot quite predict those in this review. The second problem with the screen is that it's extremely reflective. This makes it quite hard to use outdoors as those reflections get in the way. And one more thing is the crease which is there. Some people are really sensitive to that, and we sure wish it wasn't there too, but we would not say this has been a deal breaker for us. Talking about the camera, a phone this thin simply doesn't have enough space for a full-fledged camera system, and that's why Google had to use this bulging camera hump. Well, at least it gives the phone some personality. It houses 3 rear cameras, a 1x main shooter, a 0.6x ultra-wide camera, and a 5x zoom periscope style lens. This looks much like the camera system on the Pixel 7 Pro, but there are some differences. For starters, the Pixel Fold's 48-megapixel main camera uses a smaller sensor size compared to the Pixel 7 Pro, and a smaller sensor typically results in photos with slightly lower quality, especially at night. At least the ultra-wide cameras are of a similar size on the Pixel Fold and Pixel 7 Pro, but they are in fact different sensor, and the Pixel Fold does not get as wide as the 7 Pro. Looking at the quality of photos, though, you can hardly even tell about the smaller sensors. The Pixel Fold captures images with that typical Pixel look, with excellent wide dynamic range and a great amount of detail. Photos might not be quite as vivid as your typical smartphone shots, but we don't think that's bad. Some people may like that look and others may dislike that, so it's a personal preference. The typical crushed shadows from the Pixel 7 Pro are now lifted slightly, and we think despite the smaller sensor, the Pixel Fold sometimes manages to capture even better-looking shots than its non-folding sibling. In low light, however, you do notice occasionally a bit less detail and a different way to handle flares from lamps. Talking about performance, the Pixel Fold is powered by the Google Tensor G2 chip, and that's the same chip that Google uses in the Pixel 7 and even the budget Pixel 7 a series. We think this choice is quite controversial. After all, this phone costs $1,800 and it comes with the same chip you use on a $500 phone. That doesn't quite sit right. The Tensor G2 is a perfectly decent chip on its own, but make no mistake, it is no match for the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, which is expected to power the Samsung Galaxy Fold 5. So if you care about performance in the long term, or running more intense tasks or gaming, well, the Pixel Fold is just not the fastest around. But worse yet, the Pixel Fold tends to overheat easily, and sometimes even with ordinary tasks. While usually the phone runs smoothly, once this happens you will see all sorts of stutter and hiccups. Another issue we noticed is that in some games and apps, buttons would occasionally not respond to a touch. The phone was still operational, it was just this weird glitch happening quite a few times. In one of the games we tested, the button you used to fire a weapon would not work at all. We had to press a very particular edge of that button to finally get it to function. And more demanding games will definitely make this phone sweat as it gets hot easily, so there might be better options for gamers. As for the rest, the base Pixel Fold model comes with 12 GB of the latest LPDDR5 RAM, and the base model has 256 GB of UFS 3.1 storage, or you can step up to 512 GB of storage for a slightly higher price. Another thing special here is the Google Pixel Fold software. This is Google's first foldable, and it comes with a number of cool features that make use of the folding form factor. But most importantly, you have real and very usable split-screen multitasking. You can put two apps side by side on the Pixel Fold, and you can have them at either a 50-50 or a 66-33 split. There is no option to have floating apps or a third app like on the Galaxy Fold, which might annoy some power users, but we did not really miss those niche features in our experience. What we did notice much more is how many popular apps are still not optimized for foldables, and it's now been nearly 4 years. Instagram is one of the worst offenders, launching in a letterbox, but many others too. The only thing you can do is move them left or right instead of center, but that's a real shame. Those apps that do support the foldable format are most Google apps, and you can really appreciate the design improvements. When it comes to updates, Google promises 5 years of security updates and 3 years of major Android OS software updates. Decent, but not quite the best in the industry. The chunky weight of the Pixel Fold is certainly a disadvantage, but on the flip side, it enables a nearly 10% larger battery than you have on Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold 4. The Galaxy Fold 4 comes with a 4,400 mAh battery, and the Pixel Fold ups that number to 4,821 mAh. That's a big increase, and especially for such a thin phone. Pixel phones have one of the slowest charging speeds in the industry, and it is definitely not changing that. Google recommends its 30-watt charger, but the phone only supports up to 21-watt wired charging speeds, which definitely feels very slow for such a large battery. As a reminder, the Pixel 7 Pro supports 23-watt charging speeds, not much different. You also have support for wireless charging, but again at 7.5 watt speeds. Folding phones have a larger size, and with that comes an opportunity to use higher quality loudspeakers than traditional slab phones. The speakers on the Pixel Fold are boomy and a bit more impressive than on the Pixel 7 Pro, but it's not quite a massive change in quality. We also have roughly the same haptics experience here as on the Pixel 7 Pro. Vibration feedback is nice for typing, but I found it a bit too weak and I missed a few calls simply because I did not feel the vibration in my pocket. It's great to see Google joining the foldable phone space. Samsung seems to have gotten way too comfortable with the Fold series, releasing very minor updates, and we are glad that Google finally addresses the elephant in the room, the form factor. The Pixel Fold makes my life easier because it doesn't force me to open it for every single notification. And I also appreciated the thinner design. and the camera experience and device, where you just cannot be certain about its durability after a few months or a year. As it is now, the Pixel Fold is the foldable phone I have enjoyed using the most so far, yet it still feels like a niche rather than the mainstream. If you really like foldables, you should not miss this release. Even if you don't end up buying it, you should try this out and experience this new form factor. But if you are on the fence about the whole foldable thing and don't have an endless money supply, it's hard to justify the full price, and it would be wise to wait out and see whether any durability issues will surface over the next couple of months. Thanks for watching until the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you again very soon.